Hey everyone, it's Mark Skipper Mark, and today we are not at a beautiful lake getting ready to use our wave runners. Unfortunately, here in Connecticut, it's snowing, but I was thinking about some of the places that we've gone over the past year, and we went to some amazing places, and that's what this video is about. It's going to highlight each of those places and just give a overall idea of the places that we went. So if you're thinking of going to somewhere nice, maybe this video will help you decide to go to one of those places. So if you have any questions about these areas, please leave a message in the comments and I'll be happy to answer as best I can. Thanks for watching and have a great day. We got our wave runners in February and we're really anxious to use them. Unfortunately, here in New England, the weather is always cold in the spring. The air temperature was 47 degrees at our house and probably colder at the lake. We bundled up in winter clothing, but it wasn't appropriate for being out on the water. The wind was pretty strong and the waves were pretty big and we got really wet, but we still actually had a pretty good time.
That was cold! And cold on the front.
Connecticut doesn't have very many big lakes, and Gardner Lake is one of the bigger ones, so on summer weekends it can be really busy. It's a great place to go after work or on a Saturday or Sunday if you just want to go and have fun for a couple hours, but it's not a destination like Lake George. There are several campgrounds on the lake, which is great if you're into that type of thing. Overall, if you're in Connecticut and looking for a lake that's fun to go to, it's a great lake. The water's clear, but again, it's really busy in the summer. There's also a state park next to the boat ramp, which is great because you can bring a family down, and if you have a jet ski like this, you know, people can hang out on the beach. You can drive up to the boat ramp and pick them up, take them out for a while, come back and pick somebody else up and take them out. The second lake we went to is Candlewood Lake, which is in Danbury, Connecticut, plus several other towns. It's Connecticut's largest lake and is very big. It's over 5,000 acres and is about 10 miles long. There are two boat ramps on the lake. One is Squant's Pond and the other is Lattin's Cove. Both are very busy. What's weird is even though these are very popular launches, they're not very well maintained. The ramps themselves are in fine shape, but they don't have any docks and there's no provisions to do anything with your boat. Once you drop it in the water, you're forced to pull it up onto the shore, which I find kind of weird. There is a sort of dock at Lattin's Cove, but it's really not a traditional dock. It's more of a cement wall with Jersey barriers around it. The problem is when you pull up next to it, that barrier is sticking out and it's easy to hit your boat on it. The lake is very long, but it's pretty narrow and it has these arms that go off in all kinds of directions. Because of this and the number of boats that are on the lake, it can get pretty rough on the weekends. One area that's really popular is called Chicken Rock. It's this huge rock that people climb up onto and then they jump off into the water. I would guess it's maybe 20 to 30 feet. Seaplanes are also popular on the lake, so you actually want to be on the lookout for them because they'll take off and land right above a boat. One time when we went, there was a fire in the forest nearby, and this seaplane kept coming in and grabbing water and then flying over to the fire and dropping it on it and then coming back and doing it over and over and over. It was pretty cool to watch. One nice thing about the lake is there's lots of islands on it that are open to the public. Even though the lake is really big, it has a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit during the day, and it's very busy on the weekends. It's a great place to go if you're local to the area, but it's not a destination lake. It's not somewhere you'd go and take a vacation. It's very popular with boaters in Connecticut and New York because of its close proximity to New York City. The lake is actually a dammed up river, and when it was made, it kind of became this valley, so it's very pretty when you drive through. There's really high cliffs on the side. In most of my videos here, unfortunately, it's not super pretty because we went before the leaves were out, but in the summer it's very pretty. The third area we went boating was Lake Winnipesaukee, which is in central New Hampshire. It's 71 square miles and is the third largest lake in New England. It's over 20 miles long and 9 miles wide. There's over 250 islands on the lake that range in size from a few square feet to over 1,000 acres. Most have houses on them, but a couple like Stonedom Island are designated as nature preserves, and they don't have any development other than docks to allow people to get off and walk around. Some of the islands are connected to the mainland by bridge, but most require a boat to access, and a few get their mail delivered by a U.S. mailboat, which is extremely rare these days. We've gone on the mailboat several times, and it's really fun because the residents meet you at the dock. The boat sells things like ice cream and t-shirts, and then when it leaves, the residents climb onto the dock pylons and jump into the water. Any of the boat tours are nice because you get to see some of the houses on the lake. They can range from small cabins to 30,000 square foot mansions. Boating on the lake can be a mix of everything from mirror calm water to 3 to 4 foot seas. It really depends on where and when you're out on the water. Holidays and weekends tend to be the busiest, and there's certain parts of the lake that attract a lot of boaters. You'll encounter all types of boats out on the water, from kayakers to large cabin cruisers. The daytime speed limit is 45, and there are a lot of marine patrol boats out on the lake. Lake Winnipesaukee is so big that it has 8 towns along its shoreline. If driving in a car is your thing, you can drive to the different towns on the lake, but the distance around the lake is over 60 miles, so many people just prefer to hop in their boats and take their boats when they need to go to town. Because so many people come to town on their boats, most of the towns have public docks where you can tie up for 3 or 4 hours and then walk around and enjoy the town. In Wolfboro, we like to pull up to the back docks, which is underneath a really cool bridge. And we like to go eat ice cream or go to one of the local restaurants. So we made it all the way to Wolfboro just to get hot dogs at the hot dog stand. This is one of our favorite things to do. The main street, it might even be called Main Street, I'm not sure. Lots of different restaurants and ice cream stores in this town. Come here with an appetite and you won't be disappointed. In Meredith, we like to go to the Town Docks restaurant, which has the best view of any restaurant on the lake. And we also like to go to Heskey Park and watch people try to launch their boats at the difficult ramp. The docks are a great place to watch people try to park their boats. Some people are really good and can park their boat really well, and other people struggle a bit more. Some people have boats that are so big that they can't even find a spot at the dock to park it. There are a lot of boat ramps on the lake, and some are open to anyone, and others are only open to residents of the town that you're in. Some of the marinas on the lake also allow their ramps to be used by the public. Pretty much every ramp will charge a fee, and those prices range from $20 and then go up from there. As for shopping and eating at restaurants, most of the stores and restaurants in the area are family-owned type places, and they offer a friendly hometown atmosphere. With the exception of some regional grocery stores, there are very few chains around the lake. Not only can traffic on the lake be busy, traffic in the towns can also be very busy. On a holiday weekend, it can take over 30 minutes to get through certain areas. If you're looking for some recreation, the Winnipesaukee Pier at Weir's Beach is a very popular spot. There are arcades, pizza shops, touristy gift shops, a few cruise boats, and an old-fashioned train, plus a whole bunch of other stuff. Another popular area is the Meredith Town Docks, which has several restaurants and boat charters on the Miss Meredith. Plus, there's all kinds of water sport rentals at Eagle, which is a store that is called Lake, spelled backwards. If you're looking for a vacation spot that has nice boating and lots of places to eat and shop, Lake Winnipesaukee is a great place to consider. After having a great time up at Lake Winnipesaukee, we felt we were ready for really big water, so we decided to go out on Long Island. That was kind of a mistake to say that because it ended up being really rough.
No, it's actually very rough out here.
We launched our boat at the Bayberry Lane ramp in Groton, Connecticut, and decided to head over to Fisher's Island. Even though Fisher's Island is in New York, we chose it because it's only about 5 miles from Connecticut. The ride over was pretty good because we were heading downwind mostly, but on the way back we were heading crosswind, and we just got soaked from all the waves that were splashing us. Matt really liked it because he was able to jump a lot, and he got his first real big air on the waves coming back. Between the chilly breeze and the waves hitting us nonstop, I was frozen when we got back. Nancy was smart and didn't even go. She just stayed at the boat ramp. Coming back, we did get to see some really nice little islands. We wouldn't really suggest pulling your boat up onto the shore though, because they're actually little rocks and pebbles. They're not sandy like they look. Plus, some of them really stunk because they had been taken over by birds and reeked of bird poop. The trip wasn't terrible, but if we had done it in the summer, it would have been a lot better. We never got the chance to go back though. After our cold wet experience at Fisher's Island, I still wanted to boat more, so we stopped at Pachaug Island, which is in Griswold, Connecticut, on our way home. It's one of the bigger lakes in Connecticut, but it's still only about 800 acres. The lake is about 3 miles long and less than a half a mile wide, and it's also very shallow. I think it's probably only about 10 to 12 feet in the deepest parts. Even though it was windy, we had fun racing up and down because there's no speed limit, and we were able to go about 55 miles an hour. This was a fun lake to go to in the spring, but I don't know if I'd want to go here in the summer. I think there would be a lot of lily pads that you'd have to deal with. We actually encountered a bunch of weeds and stuff when we were here, and we were here in early May. Mystic is a town along the shoreline that we like to visit in the summer. There's no public boat ramps in the area that allow easy access, so we launched our boats at the Thames River in New London, Connecticut. The total distance was about 12 miles, of which probably 7 or 8 was out on the open ocean. The ride over was pretty good, and the water was really pretty. It was also pretty calm, which was nice. Mystic Seaport was our ultimate destination, and to get there you have to pass by several marinas. And the ride up the river was great. We had a really good time just going slow and passing all the boats and making our way up to the seaport. We loved exploring the area and seeing all the history on our wave runners. Unbeknownst to us, when we were in the sheltered river, the wind had picked up and the waves had gotten pretty big out on the ocean. The ride back was pretty rough and we got beat up a little bit from the waves and we got wet. Of course, Matt didn't mind it and he had fun zooming around and jumping the waves, but I'm older and Nancy and I didn't like it as much. The trip ended up being kind of short because we didn't spend that much time in Mystic, and I still wanted to boat more, but Nancy was done, so we dropped her off at the dock and Matt and I headed north up the river toward Norwich. This turned out to be a great trip. There was a rain shower for about 5 minutes, but it was nothing bad. And we did have to stop every so often because there were rowing races on the river and we had to stop while they did their races. But once we passed all that, we just headed north and had a great ride. We also passed the Mohegan Sun Casino. We discovered an abandoned city, which was cool because there were just boats that had been abandoned there. There were a few logs on the river that we had to watch out for, but overall it was a great trip. Mystic is definitely a destination spot where you could take a vacation and have a good time. If you brought a boat, I don't know where you'd leave it unless you could find a marina that would store it for you. We liked the Thames River so much we actually went back a few months later, but it was a totally different experience. It was cloudy and kind of cold, and we got stuck in this unexpected rainstorm, and we got soaked. We did get to see a couple historic boats, which I thought was pretty cool. Another area that we went a couple times was the Connecticut River. Matt and I went once during the week, and we launched from the Rocky Hill Ferry in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. The ride down the river was great that day because there was no wind and it was just super calm. The downside of the river is that there are a lot of marinas, and during the week I believe the speed limit is 45, and on the weekend I think it's 30. So basically you get up to speed, you're going 45 if it's a weekday, and then in about a minute you have to stop because there's a marina, and then you gotta go slow for 5 or 10 minutes. One time when Matt and I were out, we got stopped by the Environmental Protection Agency. He just wanted to make sure that we had our personal watercraft certificates and our boating certificate. He also checked to make sure that we had a fire extinguisher and a whistle and things like that. The worst area that we had to go through was the city of Middletown. It has a no-wake zone that takes about 45 minutes to get through, and it's just a real pain. The Connecticut River is full of debris. There's huge logs and wood just floating down the river, so you have to pay really careful attention so you don't hit something. But we did eventually make it down to the mouth of the river, and then we turned around and headed back. Another time when we went, we launched from the Baldwin Bridge, which is in Old Saybrook. It's probably the busiest boat ramp in the state, and you get a lot of boats that launch from there. We went out to the mouth of the river and explored the outer lighthouse, and then we passed the inner lighthouse on our way back up. One area that's really pretty is in East Haddam. There's this old opera house and some restaurants and this really cool drawbridge, and it's just a nice area to explore. It's really pretty. There's also a huge flag in the river. I don't know if I'd call the Connecticut River a destination spot, but it is a fun place to boat, especially if you're local to the area. You just have to be careful of the logs, watch for debris, and also watch your speed because there are a lot of police boats on the river and they won't hesitate to pull you over and give you a ticket if you're doing something wrong. That brings us to my favorite vacation of all time, especially with a boat. The Thousand Islands is an area in upstate New York that borders Canada. It's located on the St. Lawrence River, which starts at the end of Lake Ontario. The river is several hundred miles long, and it connects the Great Lakes to the Atlantic Ocean. The area that makes up the Thousand Islands is roughly 40 miles long. We stayed in the town of Alexandria Bay, which is a tourist town, but it's also part of the Great Loop. The town of Alexandria Bay itself is really nice. It's small, but there's a lot of restaurants and touristy shops, plus the people are really friendly. We would get gas at a marina called JP's, and everyone there was so nice and friendly. The area is known for its castles, which were built by millionaires who lived in New York City and other areas. The Alexandria Bay docks are very popular with people traveling from as far down as Florida, or in the case of this boat here, Alabama. They might spend the night on their boat or at one of the hotels. They can shop in town and get supplies that they need as they continue along their route back home. If you are coming in from Canada and going to Alexandria Bay, there's a customs office where you can check in, or you can also do it through an app on your phone. Boating on the river is a mix of boating types. This is the Canadian Narrows, and the current and waves through here were really strong and rough. And there can be really calm water, which we found in an area that we called the Flatlands.
Let's say it, Nancy. To the Flatlands!
That's not an official name, it's just a name that Matt and I came up with for an area east of the Thousand Islands where the water was just super flat. It was literally mirror smooth. It was some of the best boating I've ever experienced. One thing to note, the border between the US and Canada is sort of split by the river. So you can be in Canada part of the time and the US other times without having to go to any kind of border patrol or customs office. If we had gotten out in Canada or met up with somebody from Canada, we would have had to have gone through a customs inspection, but to just boat on the water and not talk to anybody or get out, we were able to do that. The laws always change, so I would check before you do go boating just to make sure that whatever you're doing is compliant with the law, because if you're in Canada and you're not supposed to be, they can take your boat and you can go to jail. Same for the US. Another area that we loved was called Half Moon Bay. This is in Canada, and it's just this beautiful cove that has the most gorgeous green water. It's actually a place that's run by a church, and they have church services on Sunday morning. People just pull up in their boats and they just have church. Another area that we loved was the Thousand Islands National Park in Canada. The park provides tents for glamping, and I think you can bring your own as well, but there's a lot of people that kayak around the area and fish, and it's just a really pretty area to explore. I told Matt and Nancy that if there was only one place we could go in 2024, it would be to the Thousand Islands. Another very touristy area we went is Lake George in New York. This lake is one of the premier lakes in the country, and it's known for its beauty. Before you launch a boat in Lake George, you have to get it inspected. The inspection looks for invasive species that could get transferred into the lake. There's several inspection areas around the lake. One of the main ones is along I-87 at a rest stop, and there's another one at the main launch, which is at Million Dollar Beach. The inspection is free, but you have to buy a boating pass, which allows you to actually launch your boat into the lake. That can vary depending on if you buy it for a day, a week, or a season. After you're done boating for the day, if you're planning on coming back, they put another seal on your boat to say that it's been inspected and approved for another launch. The lake is very pretty, but it's very busy and it can be really rough. The lake is about 30 miles long and just about 2 miles wide, so it's kind of narrow, and you get a lot of wave action as boats pass each other. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! The scenery around the lake is beautiful. On the southern end, it can be developed, so there's the town of Lake George, lots of houses and some hotels. And in the center part of the lake, it's all wilderness, and they can't even build roads close to the lake, so it's just really remote and pretty. In the northern part of the lake is the town of Ticonderoga. That's my favorite part because the water is shallow and it's very pretty. If you like to camp, Lake George has hundreds of campsites right on islands in the middle of the lake. You can make reservations in advance, or I think some of them are first come, first serve. I would love to camp on one of the islands, but I don't think it's something you could do on a wave runner. There's just not enough room to carry your gear. Got a couple sandwiches. Nancy's already woofing hers down, and we're gonna sit here at this picnic table and enjoy the beautiful view. There's nothing to worry about though. If you wanted to stay overnight and didn't want to camp, there's dozens of hotels in the area. We ended up staying at a hotel about 10 miles away in the town of Luzerne, and it was really nice because we weren't right in the heart of Lake George, but we were still really close and just a short drive away. The actual town of Lake George is very touristy. There's all kinds of stores and shops, and there's everything from nationally known places to local family-owned places. It's really a great place to explore. If you want to see the lake but don't want to take your own boat or wave runner, there's lots of cruises on the lake from several different companies. One of the boats is actually steam-powered with a paddle. Parasailing is very popular. There's an old historic fort. There's a small amusement area for kids, and there's a big Six Flags not too far away. Lake George is very urban, and it's a great place to go if you want to have all the comforts of home without being too rustic but still being in a beautiful area. The Great Sacandaga Lake is a lake that I have wanted to go to for years. We used to pass it when I was a little kid and we were going on vacation to the Adirondacks. It would seem like we would drive next to it for hours. It's over 20 miles long and over 3 miles wide. And then it has 2 arms that go off of it. One goes off the northwest and is a couple miles long, and then one goes off the northeast, and that's over 16 miles long. We went there twice, and the first time we went, the conditions were very smooth, and then the second time we went, it was very rough with 2 to 3 foot waves. There are several islands along the lake that are open to the public, and you can just hang out at them during the day, which is really fun. We stopped at 2 of the islands while we were at the lake, and we had a good time, but we didn't bring towels with us or a cooler or anything like that, so we weren't able to just sit out and relax for the whole day. But we still had a great time walking around and exploring the islands. There's also a campground, the Northampton Beach Campground, where you can camp right on the shoreline. I wouldn't call the Great Sacandaga Lake a tourist destination, There's no hotels on the water, no towns on the lake. There is the town of Amsterdam, not too far away, but overall it's a great place to go if you're in the area and looking for a great lake to go to for the day. Our last 2 trips to the ocean weren't very successful, but we decided to try one more time. The weather called for mild winds, so we decided to go to the Thimble Islands in Branford, Connecticut. The Thimble Islands are a small group of islands not far off the coast of Stony Creek, which is part of Branford. Several of them have houses on them, and they range from very large to very small. It's a very popular tourist area, and several companies run cruises around the islands. It's also a very popular area with kayakers, and we used to go here when we were younger, but now that I'm older, I don't really like to kayak too much. We launched our wave runners in the Branford River and enjoyed a gentle 7-mile ride over to the islands. There's lots of ramps along the coast, but we thought this would be the best. After exploring the islands, we decided to head out to Faulkner Island Lighthouse, which is about 3 miles off the shore. The lighthouse is over 220 years old, and it was commissioned by President Thomas Jefferson. Unfortunately, the island is private, so you can only look at the lighthouse from the water. We were getting hungry, and there's a great place to eat in Clinton Harbor, so we decided to head there. Unfortunately, I picked the wrong harbor, and we ended up navigating to Grove Beach Point, which was about 4 miles too far. Well, I messed up. I wanted to go to a place in Westbrook, where we go in the car a lot, and there's a food stand where you can get food and all kinds of stuff. And I thought it was here, but it actually wasn't. Unfortunately, it's 5 miles back where we came from. But regardless, we got to see a really pretty area here. Thankfully, the weather was still nice, and we turned around and navigated to the right spot. Along the way, we stopped at a really cool sandbar, but it was kind of scary because the water was really murky, and we couldn't tell if there were any jellyfish in the water or not. After hanging out for a few minutes, we navigated to the docks, and Nancy ran up to grab us some food. So Nancy got me a grilled cheese. I'm gonna eat that now. If we go straight back to the dock, or the boat ramp, it's 19.5 miles from here. On the way back, the sky got pretty dark, and it looked like it was gonna storm, but we made it back without any trouble. The waves had gotten a little big and we got a little wet, but it wasn't too bad because it was still a pretty warm day. As we rode into the harbor, we were thankful for having a great day out on the ocean. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave a message in the comments below and I'll be happy to answer.